Hello everyone. We are back in the garden, and today I'm going to do a video about a few things that I learned this growing season. Not everything yielded the best crops, though what I did get was delicious. But beyond that, I want to do several things differently next season. Even if I don't grow the same items, same crops, I still will follow these guidelines and keep my eye out for certain diseases and funguses. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. So it is the end of this season. I'm getting ready to plant my next rotation of fall crops. This is my summer spring crops, and a few things that I learned. Let's go ahead and start first with the easiest here, tomatoes. Now, there is a fascinating phenomenon occurring on this. It's called fasciation. You see here, there are multiple flowers growing out of one. Now, this is a genetic phenomenon that honestly is just a mutation, though can be caused by various bacterial or viral infections within the plant. Though since my tomato looks pretty healthy otherwise, I think this is just a one-off genetic mutation. This is a pretty interesting phenomenon and doesn't actually affect any of the eating of the fruit. And it doesn't just happen to tomatoes, it can happen to zucchini, squash, even different types of flowers. Getting into why I'm discussing the tomato here is because I had several incidents of pests. My advice for you when it comes to deer is look at nylon bags filled with hair. Yeah, that sounds pretty creepy. It is. You will be collecting hair, but if you want to go ahead and start collecting hair, even for this fall season, it's excellent because the deer, they want to stay away from humans. They smell your scent, and your hair is going to hold your scent the longest. This stays good for up to 2 weeks, rain or shine. Just open up the nylon bag and replace it with some fresh hair. It worked out excellent. One thing that I do want you to think about here is hornworm prevention early on in the season. This is something that I didn't do. They will get about, if you're a woman, the size of your index finger. If you're a guy, probably the size of your pinky. They are thickums, and they have this beautiful sacred geometry on the back. So I couldn't find it in my heart to kill it, though I yeeted it like 20 feet across the yard, and they haven't come back. A way to prevent them from coming in the first place, they are soft-bellied larvae. And when they're in that larvae form, about to go into chrysalis and become a hummingbird moth, place eggshells around the base of your tomato crop. This will basically, unfortunately, cut up the bellies of the soft-bellied larvae, and it's a deterrent. They will stay away from your crop. Now, the other way is to just be mindful about the signs and the symptoms when they occur. I was a bit ignorant to what the signs of a hornworm would look like, and I completely ignored it for, I'm going to say, about 4 or 5 days. So it doesn't happen overnight, but when they get big enough to actually start causing irreparable damage, that happens overnight. The hornworms destroyed my crop. I had at least 20 tomatoes on this plant. This is an indeterminate variety. It is a orange beefsteak heirloom type of tomato, and that fasciation that I mentioned, the multiple faces, that does happen a lot with heirloom varieties of any crop. So don't freak out. If you want a lot of plant yield, you can cut it off, but it's not really going to affect the growth of the plant. But nevertheless, Please be on top of checking out the plant. If you start to see something that's a bit strange, like webbing, droppings, that is some sort of worm or caterpillar. Please start looking at your plant because they will cause damage. Okay? Now moving right along to the next topic of overcrowding. I did the square foot planting method. You can see a string kind of coming there. There's only this plot, and this plot, and a fourth plot over there of marigolds. But guess what? I wasn't really mindful that this cut and come again variety, grows up to at least a few feet. And it has a bushing-like quality. I should have only planted 2 marigolds per 1 square foot. To your bed, I put 4 in one plot. So right now I have about 16 marigolds in here, and it is chaos. I had some nasturtium. You see they're being completely choked out, but beyond them being choked out, look at these marigolds. They're so leggy. Now, I also wasn't mindful of the variety of nasturtium I was planting right next to all these marigolds. I will show you the size of the nasturtium. You saw it a bit in the beginning, but let me give you a better look. This right here is the nasturtium variety that I planted. Do you see the amount of spread you get on this nasturtium? This is really something that should be planted in an isolated fashion like I did here. This is only one, by the way. If you were curious, this is only one planted here in this plot. It's spread. Oh, excuse me. It's in this plot. Either way, it is spread. Very much so. So please, please, please be mindful of varieties that you're growing. And look up that exact variety if you're utilizing the square foot planting method. But I'll go ahead and tell you, if you're growing either marigold or nasturtium that are growing at least a foot or more, plant them in a more isolated fashion. Give them space and room to grow. This is healthy. You see how beautiful it looks? That one over there that's yellowing and looking sad, being completely choked out, trying to reach out of the bed to get some just an inkling of light. Yes, please be mindful of that. But on the topic of overcrowding, let's go ahead and look at my watermelon. Unfortunately, this dying vine is my watermelon. You see I have one growing here. I'm having faith, but I will be honest, it's little faith that this will fully mature and grow, only because this is the base of the plant. And this right here, my friends, is downy mildew. This is the effects of downy mildew. You can see it here in the leaf iteration. It is very crunchy, and these yellowing spots followed by an eventual black or brown spots, and that will continue to spread throughout the crop. I forced all of the runners along the side of the bed. I wish I had a photo because it was very dense here, very leafy, lots going on. And as those ran to the side, I got a little, I cut a, I don't even know what this is, shelf. And I went ahead and strung this along and let it cascade over to the other side. I already picked one of these. If you look on my community post, you'll see the beautiful inside of that one. I had some that were overripe, though unfortunately I lost the footage for that. Though I have faith that these will come out delicious. Continue to follow the watermelon. You see it starts to look a little more healthy as we head over here. There's one fruit set right there. And that is due to the fact that downy mildew, if you've ever heard of powdery mildew, it is not the same thing. They're not necessarily related. Powdery mildew is more of a fungus that really affects the aesthetics of the plant. Powdery mildew, on the other hand, not only affects the aesthetics of the plant, but as you can see, eventually starts to affect the foliage on the plant, which unfortunately starts to slow the growth hormone and the stimulant throughout the entire vine. This is why I think that fruit set that I just showed you is so small, and the one on the trellis hasn't really been developing like my other watermelons had, because unfortunately it's been stunted. It will not affect the taste of the fruit. The fruit is still safe to eat. Cucurbits, which is what is the watermelon family, like cucumbers, are very susceptible to downy mildew. Though, I want to say that's the only plant that was fallen to the downy mildew, though unfortunately no. Now, before we go to the other plants that were affected, I'm gonna go ahead and show you what powdery mildew looks like. Alright, so this is my flower bed. It's very chaotically strung up and put together, so don't mind that. I have some rudbeckia, marigold, and zinnias growing up here. I have a few bachelor's buttons here. So these are the zinnias, and as you can see here, this is what powdery mildew looks like. Literally, it looks like someone came and sprinkled some powder or diastaceous earth onto your crop. Which flowers are highly susceptible to powdery mildew? It is zinnias. The zinnias are, pretty much every zinnia here has some signs of powdery mildew, but it has infiltrated onto the rudbeckia. Now let's go take a look at my basil and my muscadine. Something to be mindful of when you start to see the signs of downy mildew, go ahead and treat it with some sort of fungicide, whether you want to go an organic route with like a copper, or I've even heard milk, neem oil. You can do that, but if you want to go a more chemical route, that's completely up to you. It is your garden. Here I have my basil that was unfortunately affected by downy mildew once again. There's no real like powdery substance, but it does look like some sort of growth substance on it. And what you're actually seeing here is the mold spores. See that almost fuzzy like quality? So, downy mildew is a water mold. What I would suggest to you is when you're pruning, prune those big leaves that are matured. From your last pruning, whatever has grown to the size of being like a mature leaf, pick that. Pick it all. You want your basil leaf. Of course, you don't want to send it into shock or anything, but you want to lob off the top node so it doesn't go to flower, and pick off all those mature leaves. This is going to allow ample airflow throughout your basil. So next season, I'm probably still going to use this for my basil. What I'm going to do is raise the soil levels up to maybe this handle around here area, so the stems are exposed and it gets ample airflow all throughout the entire plant. This here is my muscadine. Now, this right here, I can't tell if that's viral, so I'm definitely going to look it up just to make sure my muscadine can be healthy for next year. But here are little polyps. These are little bugs that, like, this is the larva. They're living in here. These brown bits are the ones that have escaped already. But basically, they set their little eggs there. They live within the leaf of the plant structure, and as they're born, they kind of eat their way out. So you see there's little holes here in the leaf. A bit creepy to look at, but this is it in its early stages in the larval form. They are basically camping out in the leaf, and they will hatch and crawl and eat their way out, really. But moving along this muscadine, I Everything's looking fine until we get here. Now you see my muscadine has been pretty much stripped of leaves and foliage, and that is due to, say it with me kids, downy mildew. See that same effect, the yellowing, the browning, the blackening of the leaf, turning it into basically an uninhabitable space for life. So completely my fault. I wasn't quite sure how I should tame the muscadine. So I basically, if you can see here, you can see how they are all kind of interconnected onto each other, which actually just created this damp, dank environment that introduced mold. There's a lot of airflow here, which is why the symptoms are not exhibited, though we still have a lot of the, I forget quite at the moment what it's called, but I want to say they're polyps, though that could be a medical term. The reason why I'm pretty confident that it is overcrowding is, you see we're seeing that same viral effect or pest. Again, I'll have to look that up. Though we're seeing that same effect here, but no signs of downy mildew. This is just a traditional white grape. That over there was either going to be a muscadine or a scuppernong. It's wild. It was just growing up in the trees. I cut it down so we could actually get to the grapes. So yes, please keep that in mind. Overcrowding makes any plant susceptible to downy mildew, not just cucurbits. It's any plant, okay? Because since it's a mold, it will spread. The last thing I want to discuss is my moringa trees. Look at, as tall as me. The advice I want to give to you here, even if you're not growing marigold trees, don't give up on trees, especially like woody, harder transplants that you are trying to grow new growth. Don't give up on them, because I purchased these transplants, well, my father purchased these transplants for me as a gift around 2021, I believe. And about 8 in the pack, a few flourishing. I ended up planting them into these 5-gallon buckets from Lowe's, 3 per bucket. First mistake, don't do that. Put them alone. This is a tree. Let it have the space and room to grow. Though this is a soil mix of a container mix, organic container mix, perlite, worm casings, and chicken manure. That is what I amended the soil with. I additionally put in some plant food stakes. I think I put 2 per bucket, so each tree got 2 plant stakes. And voila, you know, we have this here. So I do want to mention with moringas, if it is yellowing on the bottom, that's normal. Moringas tend to favor the growth up top. The yellowing also could be due to overwatering. So just pay attention to how you're caring for your plant. But overall, again, if you're not growing moringas, just don't give up on your trees. When they start to look like they're dying and withering away, please don't give up on any of your starts, your plant starts. Just give them a chance, you know. Everything wants to live and grow, just like you. So I hope today you learned a little bit of something, and I'm gonna wish you luck on your gardening. If you are even interested in gardening, if this is just something that you maybe want to start next year, hopefully I gave you some information that you can keep, again, in your back pocket as we walk into the next season. Bye!